He really is like one of the best ones. I like Guardians of the Galaxy, and frankly, I like Star-Lord, especially from, I just found it. I don't know that it came with him. It looked like it did.
The little woman in there.
Mm-hmm.
Silly.
But I remember getting it, and I was like, it's just too good of like a likeness.
Well, it's also like, it set a precedent that they have not always lived up to. Is that coming off?
Yeah, the clip is coming off.
Hot glue it?
Yeah, I'll have to fix it. But, so I got it, and I loved it, and then immediately I was like, I need to kind of like retire this one.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't have to put it away, but it's not. We'll touch on it.
Yeah.
Hello, everybody. I'm Will.
And I'm Kristen.
And this is So I'm Watching This Show, your twice weekly pop culture podcast where we talk about movies, TV, music, and more. And as always, this is a spoiler show, so you have been warned. On today's episode, we are going to have a conversation about the Amazon Prime original movie, The Tomorrow War. I didn't look into this at all. It was like acquired by Amazon, right?
Yeah, so it was made for Paramount, and then due to COVID, they sold it for $200 million to Amazon.
Yeah, I don't think this movie would have done well in theaters. But no. These movies haven't. They've been trying to do this for like 10 years. They've been trying to recreate this magic, and it hasn't worked.
I guess.
It wouldn't have done well in theaters, but I think it'll do gangbusters on Amazon Prime on the 4th of July weekend.
Yeah, sure. That's true. This is a really good 4th of July weekend movie. That's super true.
So I'm going to venture a guess up front that we're probably going to take a big old steaming dump all over this movie. Having said that, it's not a terrible movie.
No. Okay.
It's not our thing.
Yeah. Before we continue, I think we should all look at your shirt. Thank you, Super Yaki, again, for a perfect thing that exists in the world now.
You never know how much Maria Menounos means to you until you don't have her anymore.
14 months.
Appreciate Maria Menounos now.
And I used to be a hater.
You used to be a real hater.
So
and
we're aware.
Well, they've also got her, they've fixed her styling.
Oh my God.
She like had a hostile like stylist for a while.
It was like a yellow polka dot, like, I don't know,
with poof
bolero
sleeves,
jacket,
but then there was denim and
it was bad.
And then a ponytail knot and like yeah.
Regardless, so okay, yes, I will take a giant dump on like parts of this movie. That being said, there's a lot of talent in front of the camera on this movie, and so in that sense, I think it helps a lot of the more ridiculous stuff land better than it would in less capable hands.
I'm also just like...
Acting wise only, the writing is terrible.
The script was really bad. Well, and it's an interesting story, but I don't think it's laid out well.
It also appears that both the writer and the character he wrote don't understand how linear time works. There were so many moments where they were like, but like, what about this? And what about that? And I'm like, time moves in a linear fashion. The thing with the lifeboats.
Time only flows in one direction. It's like a river. The jump link placed 2 rafts on that river, 30 years apart. Now we can jump back and forth between them, but both rafts will always keep moving forward.
That makes so much sense, actually. I was like, this has a really solid grip on like its time travel thing. And then it disintegrates like cotton candy in a muddy puddle.
Yeah, like we are the poor raccoons watching it disappear. And so that was the thing where I just was like, also, Chris Pratt's character Dan is supposed to be a scientist, and he literally cannot grasp the concept of like, you know, essentially going back to fix something will render the moment you are in completely moot and useless. Like it doesn't exist anymore. And it takes him like 5 conversations to get there.
It's a fine movie. Yeah. And the people who it's for and the people who want to see it, who aren't doing it because they're obligated to for their YouTube channel, certainly the people excited to watch it this weekend are most likely going to enjoy it.
Sure.
Maybe even love it. it's touching into something that I'm currently just not that into.
Which
The
is
last few years, I don't know, let's say 5.
okay.
It's touching into a very sort of like rah-rah military, like country. And
5 years, like 100.
It's been 5 for me.
All the years that movies have existed.
I used to love 4th of July, and now I'm going to need a few years. I'm going to need, I still find the combinations of red, white, and blue triggering. So I'm sort of in a place where I'm like, okay, yeah. We get it.
We're not doing anything. We're not having a party. I'm making pulled pork sandwiches.
We're having a very reserved.
Yeah. And if the rest of the neighborhood could abide by that as well, that would be sweet.
I might watch Hamilton. You know what I mean? That's where I'm at. And it's also very dripping with sort of the masculine cliches, particularly in the dialogue. Mostly, actually, I would say refined or concentrated in the dialogue.
Sure.
I was a little surprised at how forward so many elements of the movie were, in particular the female representation.
There was a decent amount of it. They were good. That was one of the things
and a lot of young women in the military.
And that was one of the things I was going to call out as being actually much better than some of this movie's predecessors, which is the Yvonne Strahovski character was very good.
She was. I didn't know she was a good actress.
She is like Brad Pitt. She's too hot and people think she's bad. And I think she's really
I also haven't watched Handmaid's Tale. Isn't she a particularly interesting, like...
So I've only still watched the first 3 episodes.
Oh, I always think you've been...
No, I couldn't, spoiler alert for episode 3 of Handmaid's Tale, I couldn't get past the female circumcision. So I couldn't really keep going. That being said, in the first 3 episodes, she's pretty great. And I've heard that her arc as Serena Joy is particularly interesting. So, but I mean, she's also good on Chuck, she's good. I think she's great.
Yeah, her character was really, well, I think that part of it, I think, was well written. It was well performed.
Although that is where you get into all the Chris Pratt being a total fucking idiot about time travel.
She didn't have a chip on her shoulder. She didn't have a complex. Yep. She felt very sure of herself, very accomplished. And I mean, this is a movie that has a scene where she has a total meltdown because her dad left when she was a kid.
Yeah.
And it's
but it works.
Yeah, because that kind of stuff, especially, I don't love when they insert that kind of strife for female characters and roles where they're supposed to be in positions of power. I mean, I know
Army of the Dead.
It had a real Army of the Dead vibe a couple of times. Because they were talking about the White Spire Queen, or what were they called?
White Spike.
The White Spike Queen. And I was like, they show her and I was like, I was really hoping she was going to be in bedazzled showgirl attire.
Yeah. No, I definitely agree. But that's the thing. It's I felt like every time it looked like it was careening towards one of those moments, it did a sharp left turn and we got out of it before there was too much damage. That's not to say that the script wasn't still absurd, but it was again, on the backs of the actors, because also personal shit aside, Chris Pratt is very good at his job.
Well, I wanted to I like Chris Pratt. The intensity of that wavers from time to time. He seems to be a little bit aware, and he seems to have kind of pulled back and maybe laid low, which is always good.
He's been quiet for a while.
He just
he has big Republican energy.
Yeah, and it's he doesn't rub it in your face, but it's just present enough to be grating.
Yeah.
It's somehow almost worse because we can't write him off.
Definitely.
I mean, plenty of people do, but I think he's very appealing. Mm-hmm. I think he's very talented. Yeah, I think he's cute. We were watching Parks and Rec earlier, and Parks and Rec is a show that I ran into the ground, and so it's been several years since I've actively watched it. And I was just oh man, because that is an entirely different human.
Oh yeah, 100%.
And he also just not for nothing, he just looks great.
He does look great. He looks really great. Because you or Will were yeah, sure, father of a 9-year-old science teacher when they took his shirt off. And I was I don't know. He's got a little, he's not in top Star-Lord shape for this movie.
He's always been a little bit boxy.
But I'm
or barrel.
Yeah, I'm fine with that. But he does. He looks great. I mean, he's got a really good face.
For the most part, I'm just sort of fine. I can't. There's only so many battles I can fight.
And just being like vaguely conservative, I can't really.
I'm just sort of like whatever. A colossal waste of Betty Gilpin.
Look,
in what reality?
No. I said this on Twitter. I'm going to say it again now because I believe it to the very marrow of my bones. If she did not make $400 million for this movie, she was underpaid. That is the only reason she should have got out of bed for the 3 scenes that she was in. Absurd.
She has like 2 moments in the beginning where it's like, so, okay, Betty Gilpin, I think is one of the single most talented actresses
100%.
out there. And she somehow hasn't quite struck. And I don't know that I think she should be or that I want her to be like a household name, but I want her to be appreciated.
Like, she only has one thing in production right now, and that feels wrong.
Her most acclaimed role yet has been Glow.
Yeah.
And even that was so just under the radar. Like, I want her to be, I want her in a solid Catherine Hahn place.
Sure. Because like,
like I want the industry to appreciate her and the average person to go, oh, that lady
her.
that I like.
Yeah. For me, so many people talk about how Amy Adams is the Meryl Streep of our generation. And I don't disagree. I think Amy Adams is fabulous. I have no issues with that, but I think it's gonna be Betty Gilpin.
Betty's a slightly more character actress, I think.
That's kind of how Meryl Streep started.
Okay.
Is all I'm saying. And she does the same sort of things with her face and her mouth, and it's all very specific. And
so that's what you get with Betty Gilpin,
purposeful.
Is you get not only someone who's going to interpret, who's going to read, interpret, and deliver the script, but she's a reactress.
Yep.
She brings stuff to scenes that feel right, that couldn't possibly be scripted. And so there's a scene where she's on the couch with Chris Pratt and the little girl and stuff, and the girl's like talking to him and he kind of glances to her and she just has this sort of like she does a lot with her face, but it was so a mother being like, oh, sweetheart, like, I don't know, it's so good. And
I also think that she's the type of actress who, like, this character is nothing. She could be a broom with a wig on. But I think she like created a backstory. I think that Betty Gilpin knows Dan and Emmy's love story. And that's the kind of thing that I'm just like, you don't need to do that. It could have been a cipher, but she put the work in and it works.
I also beg of all of you to watch season 1 of American Gods.
Oh my God.
She's in she's got about 4 scenes over the course of 2 episodes, and they're like career defining.
Totally batshit amazing.
The work that she does in that bathroom scene is one of my favorites. It's up there with
she hits every emotion. Every single, even the ones that are in between, where you're like, I'm angry and disgusted, and it's
I'm
like
a vulgar woman.
Yeah.
Grief and anger have made me vulgar.
Perfect. Totally perfect.
The actual plot of the movie it's intriguing. Yeah. It's very convoluted. And I was a little annoyed at everybody's refusal to communicate.
Yeah.
And there's a throwaway line where he's like,
why don't we have pictures or videos, would help us to know what we're up against?
The consensus was that if the public saw what they'd face when they reached the future, it would become virtually impossible to fill that hunger.
Okay, cool.
And it's like, okay, fine, lampshade, I get it. But it's like,
also not if there's a draft.
Well, and furthermore, I don't see how elderly, ill-prepared soldiers are going to be what does because it's like they're not even using them for bait. They just sort of like absolutely shock their systems and then scream directions to them.
Yeah.
And to the point where like when he's a soldier and Yvonne Strahovski like is like, oh, are you military or whatever? She's like, oh, sweet, like we got one. And I'm like, it felt ill-prepared.
No, I definitely agree, because even when he goes in, because they're like, your draft status has been updated or something, and he goes in, they literally are just like, take your shirt off, put your arm in this tube, blah, 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 blah. And then they're like, okay, you're going. And it's like, you need to build up to that.
He does nothing.
And like, you're leaving in 24 hours.
It's so funny. He does nothing but ask questions. And they like bark orders at him. And then once they've like drilled into his arm, which we know how I feel about that, she's just like, any questions? And I was like,
Answer the ones he already asked, bitch.
And again, I appreciate the tone they were going for, but I found it so jarring as an audience member.
Yeah.
The audience that this movie's for don't need the nuance that we're critiquing right here. But the parts of it were so
ham-fisted,
egregious that it was laughable. Like when they show up on like, what is it, like Christmas Day football game or something?
Yeah.
They like explode unannounced into the middle of the game, guns drawn.
Yeah.
They come charging the football field. People are fleeing.
Yeah.
Like people are running and screaming.
It's soccer, by the way. It was the World Cup.
Sure.
Yeah.
And she's just like, we come in peace. Just so
well,
like,
but only sort of, because it's
Sure.
like, we're from the future and there's a terrible
You're-
war.
so
You're all going to die. And it's just
so
like,
the opposite. And it was like there was just a less traumatizing way
100%.
to initiate this.
Well, they clearly don't have like total control over their like jumping mechanism, because they fucking
Which we find out
jump the people like 100 meters in the air.
there's an issue. Which, and also the one thing that this movie is fantastic for is it looks great and the
It
effects
does.
are great. And nowhere is it cheap. It's
No.
It is a actual movie theater movie.
This was a studio movie.
Yeah.
This was not like Amazon money. Which, to be
Not
fair,
to I mean, we like the Amazon and Netflix money, but sometimes it's still TV.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so they jump them. It looks amazing, but there's like an issue, and they're like, "What's going on?" And it's like whoop whoop whoop, and we just don't find out like what happened, why, how. Also, like, how is literally reverse bungeeing them into the future the most efficient way to do? And again, like they lampshade that in the movie by being like, "Well, it's because it's necessary. We'd still be testing this on rats." But
fine. It's fine. It's very, thank God we've invented that machine that you can smoke cigarettes in space. It is very that vibe.
just put them in those
but-
giant hamster bubbles.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? So
Because then it's like, I would say probably 90% of the unit that they send is just dead because they fell from the sky onto concrete and buildings
into
and
South
shit.
Miami,
Yeah.
like South Beach, like.
And like the handful of them only survive because they fall right into the pool on the top of a building, which still would have shattered all the bones in the side they landed on.
It was also a strange use of Marilyn Rice Cub and the other guy.
Oh, yeah.
They like really.
His name is Mike Mitchell.
They like established them like we're given a motley crew.
Yeah.
Wow. I was gonna say that mercifully, like the two black dudes are the only ones who like make it out of that, and I was like, we don't see that frequently.
Mhm.
So another point in its sort of like
Favor,
interesting column, it's sort of progressive column, but yeah,
definitely.
we think that they're gonna be there, and it's like they're gone by the 40-minute mark.
Yeah. Also,
Mind you, they were introduced at the 25-minute mark.
Yeah. Also, this movie is 2 hours and 20 minutes long.
Going on 4.5.
It
feels longer.
An hour and 45 minutes.
Uh-huh.
It just could have been tightened down so much. That's the thing is like, I'm going to compare this to The Edge of Tomorrow, which was in all respects a better movie.
Well, I was gonna say it also is about like two people, and this is trying to be about the world.
Sure, but there is also a motley crew in Edge of Tomorrow, and it's very similar to that, but that is maybe the point, is like where it differs is that movie is so focused, and it's an hour and 53 minutes long, and there is nothing that is not essential to the story in that movie. Because that movie gets right to the shit, like right into it. He's immediately like in the loop or whatever. There's like 35 minutes before they're even like in the shit in this movie. And I'm just like, fucking get rid of all of that. We don't even need Betty Gilpin. Like she didn't
Him being
need
a teacher,
No, there's like a 10-minute scene of him in class trying to like get the kid to stop talking about volcanoes. And I'm just like, which turns out to be so crucial to the fucking plot of this movie.
Well, I was gonna say, cutting to the end, that's a place where most people are going to turn their brains off with this movie, and that's fine. I'm not judging them. This is these are my stories. This is my journey, my truth. But it felt disingenuous to me that 30 scientists from 30 years in the future couldn't figure out what happened.
Yeah. Well, I suspect for part of it, it's like it was already too late for them.
Sure, but we got there before the movie did.
That's true. And also, I guess then what's what's keeping them from, if they figured out what's keeping them from just sending someone back to be like, hey, this is what happened. You guys can fix it before it happens.
Well, because they didn't figure it out though.
Yeah,
because
no.
and then the teleportation thingy broke. But it just, I don't know, that the last like 20 minutes of the movie, I got it. I understood, but I think that's what I meant when I was like, I like the story, but I was like, I don't think it's laid out well.
Right.
Like, I think that information could and should exist in this story, but I don't like it the way it was tacked on to the end.
Sure.
It feels like this.
Because the thing at the beginning about volcanic, the like kid with the volcano, it doesn't have enough of a button. It just feels like that's a nerdy kid who wants to talk about volcanoes in science class. There's not enough of a button that we're like expecting it to come back later, you know?
Well, and I mean, I don't hate that, but it's the kind of thing that it's like, they're like, these aliens landed and there's no footage of blah, blah, blah. And so, I mean, it's like literally the first place my mind went.
They were already here.
I was like, okay, so they already here. This is some like Hollow Earth, like shit. I
wasn't necessarily thinking Hollow Earth, but I was also sort of thinking like if they were some sort of like volcanic creature or something that was like, you know,
or like prehistoric, because we don't know half of, I mean, that's a fact I just learned that has blown my mind, and I have not been throwing it around sporadically.
Yeah.
But apparently, like, the fossil records that we have account for like 0.99% of all things that have ever lived on this earth.
Oh, of course, yeah.
And it's like, that's just mind-boggling to think that we have such a small grasp on our own reality.
I did not like watching Cosmos for a reason.
And so that's sort of where I was I was like, maybe they were remnants from like a leftover or came in a meteor or something.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking too.
Because we then get like a real sort of like Alien / Prometheus thing where it was like they ended up on this planet via another species. Yeah. Whether they were being brought here or crashed here or something, I think remained unclear.
They decided it looked like a crash because the ones that they found that were like actually piloting the ship were like deceased in a way that felt like impact. And then they found the like...
Well, someone at some point suggested a kind of like terraform thing that they...
Yeah, where it was like these, the like white spikes would come and like, you know, get rid of all everything. The life on the planet. And then presumably those then aliens would come down.
Which again, interesting stuff for movies, but it just like, I didn't think... It's an issue I have with movies, but I just didn't think this was the most efficient way to tell that story.
Yeah, agreed.
Considering how we just sort of praised the movie for being relatively progressive in some aspects, there was a lot of like dated homophobia. Not quite homophobia, more sexism. Like you two can braid each other's hair later, and it's like, or the metrosexual scruff. Is it 2004?
J.K. Simmons' character was misguided at best.
Like, there was parts where I was like, this script is from like 2002. And it's like, been rattling around Hollywood for a while.
Yeah.
There was just a handful of things and temperaments that I'm like, it just felt slightly outdated.
I agree.
And didn't meet a cliche it didn't love. You're right, that stuff with his father, it was just...
Yeah. You left me.
It's exactly what you think it is. And the dialogue in those scenes is pure motion. Just going through the motions. None of it is actually amounting to anything.
Yeah.
And we also...
To the point where, like, at the beginning when J.K. Simmons throws, like, a drink in his face, I was like, how do we escalate this so quickly? And it wasn't until the words, "Are you trying to check if I'm wearing a wire?" came out of Chris Pratt's mouth that I was like, oh... Stupid.
Well, because even that scene that we already kind of appraised Yvonne Strahovski for, but when she like has that little meltdown, I was like, it works solely based on their performances because I was like, this means nothing to us. This is all tell, no show. We never find out why he leaves.
Yeah.
We have no reason to believe that the person we meet was going to leave his family.
Right.
And I felt important.
Yeah.
Like, if you're going to threaten us with that, we need to understand it. And
because also it's like...
And also, like, him dying in a car accident,
Yeah.
Because I was like, did he kill himself?
Because he couldn't handle the like whatever happened.
Yeah.
But
I was like, alcoholism? Like what? Like
that's the other thing is like, that's where I don't understand the time travel, because I'm like, she exists in a world where he also went to the future, but she didn't maybe meet him in that future. And so he went back. It's like very bizarre. I don't get it.
I need a paper.
Yeah, I need a piece of pen and paper.
We've never been able to talk about time travel without drawing a line on a piece of paper. I think this is the first time through.
Okay.
So in this scenario, he like in her reality, he hasn't already done this.
Okay.
So, and like again, like I said, I liked the explanation they had of like, because they explain in this world that time is linear.
Mm-hmm.
It goes in a line, and because he's like, why don't you just go back to before a certain point or whatever? And he was like, through whatever science we have, they basically were able to make 2 points. They were able to create a wormhole between 2 points, and those points are moving like 2 rafts in a river. Yeah. So it's like they can't go back to before the point they've already made. And I was like, that kind of makes sense.
Works. That helps me.
It intrigued me in a way that the rest of the movie let me down.
Because that's also the thing where it's like, by the time he does get home, and he's still thinking about it because he has the like toxin that'll kill the queen or whatever, the females or whatever. But you're right, where it's like all of the scientists in the present and all of the scientists in the future couldn't figure out what Chris Pratt and his psychiatrist wife figured out just at like midnight on a Thursday. Like, that doesn't seem correct.
Also, the crux of the movie, just I'm going to get political for a second. The whole movie doesn't hold water because it all hinges around you believing that Americans will make decisions now based on their children's future. Yeah. And that is something we know to be untrue.
It also has like obviously a global climate change metaphor, which again, it sort of falls flat because they don't make enough of it the whole time. But then it's like, once they realize it's like a volcano thing, he's like, well, this is the ice cap.
That like army guy or the guy that you were like, is he like the president? And he was in charge
No, he was the Secretary of Defense.
Sure.
Yeah.
Why is he stupid halfway through the movie? Like that, and that's the kind of stuff that drives me nuts.
Because he's the Secretary of Defense.
When people don't understand the stakes of the thing that they're in, that is very, very clearly defined.
Well, that's why I literally...
Because he's like, you mean you want me to send you to Russia? Get back in that time machine and go to the future. And it's like...
No, 100%. And that's the thing where it's like, he's meant to be like the, you know, like...
Cliche dissenting Republican.
Yeah. The Dick Cheney from Day After Tomorrow character. Or the defense secretary from Independence Day. Or the defense secretary from any other movie that has a thing like this. Or the mayor from Jaws.
You want to keep going?
All very good 4th of July movies. Secretaries of Defense are never the good guy in movies like this.
I don't know that I'd go as far as to say I liked, but I appreciated the design of the creatures. We were afraid it was going to be too Cloverfield, and it wasn't.
With the like membrane like mouths and shit. No, I thought I didn't like them because they're obviously just disgusting, but they were something different, and I appreciated that.
I was slightly confused about the tentacles. They like fired like spikes.
But it seemed like they were endless. Where were they coming from inside the body?
But also they could like see.
Yeah, or sense at least somehow.
It was odd.
That's the pull. Us both going, ha 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 ha. Yeah, they were. I didn't like, and they used them to like pull themselves through doorways. It was weird. But I literally was like, where are these unlimited spikes coming from? How are you producing that within your biology?
And we thought the queen looked like Mewtwo.
She did, when she got out right at first. She was like,
she did have, I made that joke about like her spangly showgirl costume. She did have a crown.
Yeah, she was a little bit different.
A red crown and it was so much. They were so fast.
Oh yeah.
They were so loud.
Yep.
They were so aggressive. It's like the 40-minute mark of the movie where they're trying to get out of that building in Miami and the music is screaming at you.
It was very Roar from Cloverfield from the credits.
It was like, we were just like.
It was so much. I did feel assaulted by that score.
The score, they went for it. They did it.
Yeah.
You cannot accuse them of phoning that in. So they all died except for J.K. Simmons and Chris Pratt and
Sam Richardson. Yeah.
the rest of them. No, that sucks.
They blew themselves up to like, but they were from the, well, I guess Dorian wasn't, but the rest of the soldiers were from the future. So they, they don't have a place to go back to, and they're out of their time now.
Well,
can you imagine having to live through those years?
They
again?
might not be born because,
yeah.
I mean, because like Yvonne Strahovski, she was playing, it was Muri. Yeah. So it's like she was already born.
Right.
But those people, who knows? I don't know. I liked the one, I don't remember her name, the black girl with the braids.
Yeah. The main one.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I liked her a lot. I wish she actually had a little bit more, although she had more than I thought she would.
Jasmine Matthews.
Right.
Her name was Lieutenant Hart. Yeah, I liked her quite a lot as well. I guess I already hit it at the beginning. That was like, Chris Pratt just kept on being like, I'll come back for you. And I'm like, why?
We didn't hit it.
So he finds out that Yvonne Strahovski is his daughter, grown like 30 years in the future.
Which I shockingly didn't see coming.
I accidentally spoiled it for myself.
But I think anyone with half a brain would be like, let me guess.
Dadoy.
And I was like, what?
Yeah. So like that's all good, and their interactions are really good. Their chemistry is like correct.
They managed to not have a
sexual chemistry,
which is an accomplishment, I think.
But he just keeps. So they end up trying to like make this toxin, and it's like a whole sciencey thing. They're bonding about science. It's very cute. It's nice. And then he just is like, oh, she's like, the reason that you're here again for the communication, because she wouldn't communicate that to him at the beginning. She was like, I'll tell you when you need to know. And it's just like, her reasoning is sound. She's like, there are only 500,000 people left on Earth. This Earth is gone. There's no way that we can distribute this to all of the monsters in order to get them to die. There's no possible way. I need you to take this toxin back and kill them before this happens, essentially. And he's like, okay, I'll do that, but then I'm going to come back for you. And I'm like, so you're going to rip this girl out of her time, make her live it all over again with her own self as her little sister.
If that's even a thing.
If it's even possible. He will not let it go, to the point where I was like, this won't exist if you go back and do that.
Oh, because she explains it to him several times. It reminded me of the episode of Archer where he thinks the blimp is going to explode.
Oh my God, yes. 100%.
He's just like...
And what about that are you still not getting exactly?
Well, obviously the core concept, Lana.
Are you out of your mind? I can't leave you here. And it's like, I explained this to you 5 minutes ago.
So many times. Also, do you really want to hang out with your daughter who's now older than you? Bizarre.
And it turns into Jupiter's Ascending.
Oh my God.
For like 10 minutes there. And the scene of
Jupiter Ascending, a little bit of Aquaman.
Iron Man 3.
Iron Man 3, a lot of things.
Because she's falling into the pit of hell from Constantine. I was hysterical because he jumps after her. And I was like,
what are you thinking of? It makes no sense.
Well, and this is part of, I think, Chris Pratt's problem, because this goes into the Star-Lord botching on
Infinity
the Titan moon. And I'm like, it's so dumb that we only are able to blame Chris Pratt.
Yeah.
We're not blaming these characters. It's like, you're doing this somehow.
It's somehow your fault as a human actor person.
In spite of all of that, it's a fine movie, especially for like the average person who's just trying to like.
And also, if you are in the mood this weekend to turn your brain off and just watch a creepy, weird sci-fi thing.
The action's good.
Yeah, it was good. Although they do seem to have just infinite bullets and they're not holding them anywhere. It's just a little crazy.
Well, because they can't stop firing them at these things. Yeah. And it's like it's made so clear that they're not doing any harm.
It's the neck and the abdomen, and that's it. And I get that they're fast, and so you probably are but they are like fucking Scarface with these bullets. It's like everywhere and not hitting the parts they need to hit. Again, where are the actual military people? Because these all feel like bait. So we actually have a Patreon, and we've had it for a while, and there's lots of back catalog on there. So if you want to throw us a couple bucks, you can get access to a bunch of old videos. I think you can get
so audio, but yeah.
Well, audio, yeah. There will be some videos upcoming.
We're currently covering season 7 of Drag Race.
Yeah, just for funsies, but there will be some other stuff on there pretty soon as well. And I think you can get all of that for only $1 a month. And then you can follow us on Twitter @SoI'mWatching or Instagram @SoI'mWatchingThisShow. You can also link out to everything from our website, soimwatching.com. And other than that, just rate, review, and subscribe on iTunes or YouTube or wherever you listen. And that's it for us.